Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, February 26th meeting of the Westport Board of Selectmen. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. I just want to note, so this meeting was rescheduled from Monday the 23rd due to the storm, but we did remove the agenda items that had to do with the public hearings because we didn't have time to notice them properly. So it's basically the agenda from the 23rd minus the public hearings. And I know we all want to hear from Town Administrator on the storm update.
Yes. So first, I just want to take a moment to, thank the members of our department. So starting with Highway, Chris, Evan, Austin, who's been manning the phones, and the full Highway Department team. They have done an exemplary job, outstanding. I think the analogy I've been using is they've been punching above their weight class in terms of how they've responded to the storm, in comparison to the other communities on the South Coast. Also, want to thank Chief Baldwin, who is our fire chief and emergency management director, Chief Dunn, health director Matt, and the whole public safety team. Also, thank you to the additional crews that have come in, Franklin County Sheriff's Office, Stanley Tree Service, the local AJ Pollard and Sons, as well as the support through MEMA and the countless other contractors and volunteers who lended a hand so that we could be where we are today and be back up and running today, which is phenomenal. Like I said, I was over in Fall River, and I've been traveling back and forth the last few days between other communities here on the South Coast and where we are at. We should be very proud of the team that we have here in Westport. As you know, we put the local state of emergency into place on Sunday evening ahead of time. Anticipation of storm, we called in our crews so that they were here and ready to get out on the roads, and they really have been working around the clock since. So as of now, over 96% of the accepted public streets are passable. As we head into the end of the week and the weekend and on to next week, there's still going to work that needs to be done. So widening roads, making intersections better from a visibility standpoint. So that work is going to be ongoing, but really over the last several days, our focus has been making sure that people can get out and do what they need to do across the community. So, with that, I know that an agenda item is, talk about the state of emergency that we're in. I am continuing to coordinate regularly with our emergency management team, and also I've been out looking at the conditions on the ground just to make sure that we're on the right track. But, again, we should be very proud of the work that's been done the last few days.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go through a list of thank yous, but are there any questions for Chris?
I would like to thank Chris for his efforts, which have been Herculean to say the least. It's a sort of a baptism by fire here in Westport, but it's cold kind of fire. But
I was joking with him before the meeting that he now knows all the streets in Westport.
well, that has value. Thank you.
And I'll just say, it was not me, and the team made it very easy for me to be able to do what I need to do. So I appreciate their work. Really.
So Chris mentioned a lot of these people, but I just want to, on behalf of the select board, I want to thank Chief Baldwin, the emergency management director, Chris Gonsalves, the highway department in Austin in particular, for all the angry calls he got. I want to thank the police department, the fire department. I really want to say how much I appreciate how closely highway, police, and fire were working together when you saw early on in the storm when the plows were going out on the ambulance runs, and just how great it was that they coordinated with each other and also kept the public informed on the police Facebook page, the fire department Facebook page, and the town of Westport page, Chris, that you were updating. I think that was really super helpful. I also want to thank the dispatchers. I know they were getting calls for a lot. He mentioned the Board of Health, also the custodial staff, all the town buildings needed to be cleared out. So we had custodial staff and other people at each of the town locations, including the school department. Again, thank you to the Franklin County Sheriff's Department, the Stanley Cree Company, AJ Potter, Mass DOT, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Association. Eversource did a great job of responding to, we had very few power outages, but I was very surprised. And then all the Mass DOT, and then also you, Chris, I think it was just did a phenomenal job. But, and I'd say the other thing that we get caught up sometimes on social media with the people complaining and saying, where isn't my street done yet? But I was just so encouraged by the community spirit of the people that came out and shoveled for their neighbors. They plowed driveways for their neighbors, who took care of each other. When they had a call out in case anybody had snowmobiles, there were people right there that were volunteering. So it's just, that's really one of the things that I think just makes Westport so great, is how hard our town works and the sense of community that we have. So just thank you to everyone. We could do with some less precedented times in the future, but this was an unprecedented storm, and I'm sure we'll be seeing repercussions later. Anything else on the storm before we move on to the regular agenda? Okay, so we have a request from the Acoxit Club, and the Acoxit Club Inc. and the Acoxit Club Inc. doing business as the Pro Shop, to approve the change of officers, directors for the liquor licenses. Betty Jill Tate, manager and president. Duncan Law Jr., vice president. Matthew Forbes, treasurer. Rebecca Merchant, clerk. Directors Peter Briggs, William Barnes Sr., William Barnes Jr., Mary Berg, Thomas Kevin Howley, Elena Matlack, Sean Mullaney, Elizabeth Opie, Scott Patterson, and Lindsay Tompkins. So this is just their routine changing around of directors for the liquor licenses.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from Village Pizza at 760 Main Road to amend the wine and malt beverage license to include the outside seating area. Did you want to talk about that? No? All right, so this is a request to extend the wine and malt out to the outside seating area. I did have one question about this. So the health department was okay so long as it didn't reach over the max capacity, but did the police department sign off? I might have missed it.
That I have not seen. Carla, do you have any update on if the police made any comments on this?
We did not receive a response from.
Okay.
So the police department, my understanding on the alcoholic beverage licenses from the police department, and I could be wrong, so somebody correct me, is that they want to make sure that there are egress, that it's like roped off so that people can't just come and go. Maybe someone smarter than me can explain that, but they usually want to make sure that it's confined.
Sure.
But I don't know, is that true? I mean, do we need the police recommendation?
I was asked to contact the police, at least, send them the notification, but we didn't get a response.
Right, okay, so,
Yeah, so we didn't get a response. If the board, would like to make this a contingent approval, I can certainly follow up with the chief and just see if he has any questions or concerns on the proposal that's in front of you this evening.
that's fine. I don't have any concerns about it. I think
Yeah.
it's great, but I just want to make sure, because I know sometimes they want them roped off.
The Village Pizza?
Yeah, this is for Village.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. All right, so
Pretty cordoned off anyways, it's really.
it's kind of hard to access,
you
yeah.
can't
Yeah, you can't, because it's
Walk
kind
in
of,
from the street.
you can't just come from the backside very easily, yeah. I think it's probably fine. It's just, we usually
I'm
do
not aware
that.
of a requirement.
Okay, you don't think, all right.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the board then?
Do you want to do it pending,
I don't know, what do you think? Do you think we need to do it pending the police, or?
yeah, I guess we can do it pending
Police.
Westport Police approval. I mean, if there's no disapproval, if they don't, no response.
Yeah, so let's,
Right.
I think I'd be more comfortable with that if we approve it contingent on the police. recommendation.
Motion to approve based upon pending Westport Police approval?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Were you saying something?
I was just saying pending Westport Police approval. So
Right, okay,
There's no need to.
yeah.
go through that.
I don't think there'll be a problem at all.
No,
I don't think so either.
They never is.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous, we have one absent. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Under appointments and resignations, we have a request from Christopher Dunn, the Chief of Police, to reappoint Tristan Costa to the position of full-time police officer. I have a motion to approve.
Oh, motion to approve. I didn't know if we're waiting.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request for the preliminary approval of the East Beach trailer permits pending Board of Health and Conservation approval. So this is one we typically do kind of blanket approve once all the paperwork is in, so that'll let Carla manage them as they come in rather than have to wait for meetings. If there's any that don't get the paperwork in, we can always handle them separately.
Okay, so this is, once they go through both and get conservation, and they're approved essentially.
Right, so I think the motion we'd be looking for is to,
Pending Board of Health and Conservation.
right, to approve the East Beach trailer permits pending the
Con-
proper
Concom.
zone. Yeah.
Motion to approve East Beach trailer permits pending a Board of Health and Conservation Commission approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. We have a request from Martin Costa from Clean Our Westport, COW, to approve the annual spring cleanup day, Saturday, April 11, 2026, and to place a banner on Main Road in late March.
Will the snow be gone to pick up the trash?
I don't know.
Never to tell.
Snow has to be gone at some
Pick
point.
up trash.
I do recall a number of April storms and more May storms.
Well, I think Martin and his group do a phenomenal job for Westport. I'm sure we can approve it now, and if they have to change it, they'll change it.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. I think they did, they canceled it last year, didn't they?
No, they did last year. It was in the rain, though.
Yeah, it was rain.
Great turnout.
4C, we have a request to accept the proposed zoning amendments for the 2026 annual town meeting, and I believe Mr. Burris might be here to explain them to us. This is, I just want to preface this by saying the scenic roadway bylaw is not one of them. And we do have in your packet is a draft of the warrant, so the text of these articles is in that file.
Yeah, that's all ready to go. It's been, well, the final version hasn't been vetted by town council yet, but the version that was seen before the planning board has been vetted by town council. So typically what we would do is it would get sent back over to council prior to being finalized for the warrant. But yeah, so before you, there's 5 sets of text revisions to the zoning bylaw, and there's 1 zoning map amendment as well with corresponding zoning bylaw modifications. As you said, there was a scenic roads bylaw that was under consideration, but due to the public response that the planning board received, they decided that it wasn't a right approach for Westport, and so they subsequently decided to table any further consideration of that. So it's just these zoning bylaw amendments that are before you and the map change. I'm happy to talk about any of them in further detail if you have any particular questions.
So let's just briefly talk about them. So Article 28 is amendment for the accessory dwelling unit, and it looks like it's just a minor revision here.
Yeah, it's a very minor revision. Last year, when the town passed the accessory dwelling unit text amendment that was that came as a response to the Affordable Homes Act new requirements for accessory dwelling units. There was some language that when the Attorney General's office reviewed our bylaw, they struck some of the language. And when they struck some of that language, they just struck out by line just some of the text. And so then from a readability perspective, some of it didn't really quite make sense. So we just updated that language in there to make it a little bit more readable in the bylaw.
All right, any questions on Article 28 there? No. So in Article 29 is building height.
Yeah, so the zoning bylaw had 2 definitions for building height, and so that's an issue when the building inspector is going to apply a particular definition, which one preempts the other or not. And so we struck one of the definitions, and then that definition also included if you look at so I'm talking about the one that says height, just height. It says that the measurements will be taken at the corners of the building or structure. The zoning bylaw didn't include a definition for structure as well, except as it related to floodplain management purposes. And so we needed to introduce a definition for structure into the bylaw as well, just so it's clear what we're referring to when we're talking about a building and a structure.
So that also didn't look like it was a huge change, it's more readability.
Right.
Then Article 30 is dog kennels. So you're increasing the number of dogs that are allowed.
That, yes, and that is consistent with a state law that, I don't know off the top of my head what it's, the official name of it, but it's commonly referred to as Ollie's Law, which increased the number of dogs one is allowed to have on their property before a kennel license is required. And so what we did is we synced up when a special permit would be required with when a state license would kick in. So we just increased it by one dog for each of these particular two categories.
All right, thank you. And then Article 31 is about the floodplain regulations.
This is more of a technical piece relating to different references in FEMA floodplain regulations, as well as some readability issues. There were some repeat definitions in the zoning bylaw that we cleaned up. We also made some modifications to particular floodplain designations and removed some because they don't exist in Westport. So we took them out of the bylaw. And this was at the recommendation of DCR, who oversees the implementation of the FEMA floodplain permit for the state. And then there were the one main change, content-wise, is that we had to specify that any flood encroachments in the floodplain require a hydrologic and hydraulic analyses, which is looking at the volume of water as well as the velocity of the water. And you have to do one of these analyses if you're putting fill in the floodway. And you have to if you're doing that, you have to demonstrate that there will be no adverse impact on the floodway with the proposed encroachment. This is all standard boilerplate language that that DCR requires to have in place for the town to continue to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program.
Any questions on that one?
Just one question.
Yep.
So there is no change with respect to where construction can occur? Because I know what conservation, when it comes before us, elevation levels and various other things. So there is no change as to what you can and can't do based upon the floodplains. It's more changes and technical changes to comply with flood insurance.
Yep, exactly. The firm maps have not changed at all.
Thank you.
So, yeah, all of those floodplain boundaries will remain exactly the same. And I've been working closely with Chris on
Okay.
some of this stuff too, yeah.
Thank you. I'm all set.
And then Article 32, table of use revisions.
So this,
Introducing cafe and mobile food vendor.
yeah, basically is adding cafe and mobile food vendor as allowed uses in the business district, and then separating out retail from the current land use, which is classifies retail as wholesale retail business, research laboratory, service, or public utility not involving manufacture on the premises. Retail can run the gamut of variety of sizes, from your Costco to your, mom and pop pizza place. Or I guess pizza wouldn't be a good example, but like, an art
Country
gallery
Wellness.
or something like that. I just had Village Pizza on my mind. So yeah, we separated that out, and that'll become important for the next one when we talk about the Village Commercial District.
Okay, so 33, the village commercial zoning district.
So this is the zoning map change, and the Village Commercial District is proposed for the Adamsville area. If you look on the last page of the amendments, there's a map showing where this district would be located. It's 5 parcels right on the border of Westport, Westport's border with Little Compton. And we're adding in this, we're proposing this zoning district in part because there's been a recent loss of businesses in the Adamsville area in Little Compton. And that's something that's really been felt in the community down there. And we want to make sure that our zoning is making it easy for businesses to continue to evolve over time, and allow them to maybe expand their uses as well, if the need arises. What exists right now is that all of the uses there are non-conforming uses. So you have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is an uncertain process, can require a lot of time and expense, that a small business owner may not be really interested in trying to go down that path. We also have a business owner who is looking to expand in that area, I think, as you all know. And this would be a mechanism for relief for that property owner, in particular for a mobile food vendor. So that's included in the village commercial table of uses. The commercial district is restricted to that which was the historical commercial area in the Adamsville area. So there's a couple of businesses that currently exist, as well as there's a single-family home that was once a lamp shop, so I've been told. That's kind of at the bottom of the hill on the north side of the road. So that's, and the idea behind this is actually to use this as a kind of a testing ground to see if the community would support more of these types of zoning districts in town. Because we have right now we have a long-range planning grant to do an analysis of Westport's historic commercial areas to develop zoning to allow for this sort of flexibility. Because what we're thinking from the planning board is that, okay, if these are valued commercial areas in town, why do we put up these barriers for the small business community when these structures need to have turnover over time, or they may need to add, a small accessory expansion or something like that? But when you set up these barriers, it makes it harder for those businesses to, do what they need to do to continue their operations. So this is one small piece of what may become a larger, what will be a larger analysis. But we kept it small for this year because we wanted it, 1, to be a test, and 2, we need to do a much more in-depth analysis for the other areas.
This is an area that's already got commercial
Right.
interest there. It's that
Exactly.
they're there as right now.
Right, so this was kind of like the low-hanging fruit of, okay, what can we do right now while we're taking a more in-depth approach to analyzing the zoning and community preferences in some of the other areas of town.
Any questions on that?
Madam Chair, I
Yeah.
just have a few questions on that. Did you hold meetings specifically on this, or any public input on this with respect to that area? And where does it stretch from? Obviously, is it just from, I was looking at that map, there is obviously a residential street before you get into that area. Is it basically from there to the basically state line, which is at the harbor there?
It goes from, I guess it's easier to think of it from the state line and then go into Westport.
Okay.
So there's the one parcel that currently has the parking on it for the Westport Land Conservation Trust, as
Yep.
well as for the coffee shop across the street.
Okay.
Then there's the one property to the north, that's the residential one that I was saying was the lamp shop. Then if you go across the street, go over to the auto body shop, then the coffee shop property, and then the offices and the art gallery, those 5 properties. The ones to the south of Adamsville Road, and also the one with the single-family home, are split zoned.
Okay.
We didn't want the you know, we wanted to keep the bounds a little bit more constrained, considering that there are some environmental resources over there. And the one on the north side of Adamsville has a really small but skinny part of the parcel that goes, I don't know, it's like 500 feet north of there. And so we didn't see a reason for it to, you know, continue that far north, especially considering it's only like 20 feet wide or something like that. But yeah, so it's just those 5 properties there.
Just another question. And as you mentioned, there are ongoing concerns with the business owner there and ability to expand. Has this will this clarify it and allow them to move forward with it? I know there's been issues with various licensing and other, you know, food trucks.
Yeah, I mean, from a zoning perspective, yes, it
Okay.
would be a by right allowance. They would have to get whatever other permits would be applicable through the Board of Health or for electrical or anything like that. There is one issue with the property where on the plat, it says that it is not to be considered a developable lot. However, there's no reference there in the deed to the purpose of that restriction, to who is the beneficiary of that restriction, or the time frame for that restriction. A legally enforceable restriction, they could also resubmit the plat to the planning board to have it struck from there. So that's maybe one potential wrinkle.
Okay.
But that's outside of the zoning aspect of that. So from a zoning permitting and building permitting perspective, yes, they would be in the clear from that
Okay.
point. And I've been in communication with the property owner as well about
Okay.
this.
One more question, through the chair, with respect to, you're talking about other residential areas, or other areas in Westport that you were looking at, other test cases. Do you have any offhand that you've looked at or thought about that would be next in line after this test case?
Yeah, so the head of Westport is definitely one, the point, and we're also going to look at reworking Central Village as well, to give it some more context-sensitive zoning, because right now, the way Westport zoning works is that it's two sizes fits all. You have business and you have residential agriculture, and that applies everywhere in town, regardless of what kind of context that land is in. And so what works on Route 6 and 177 doesn't necessarily work on Main Road in Central Village, just because they're totally different points of access, different character, different kinds of roadways going through, or road networks going through the area. And so Central Village will get some, probably a lot more of the attention because it's such a large area. But yeah, we want to give some more context-specific zoning. I think that would be beneficial for business zoning. I think it's something that also needs to be considered from a residential perspective as well. Because again, what works in the north end of Westport is different from the south end. We have a lot of different projects going on, so that's, one thing in the future to think about.
One more follow-up question, sorry, Madam Chair. So our, I guess, commercial district would stretch from that Cornell Road on Main Road, obviously all the way through Central Village. And there were concerns many years ago that there was developments coming into those residential areas that people probably did not want in those areas specifically. Would the zoning that you're looking at be more or less restrictive as to what you could do? Because essentially somebody came in and said, this piece of property is in the commercial district, I want to develop it and I want to put this there.
Yeah.
There was a big pushback from residents in that area, up and down Main Road. So looking at that area, is there ways that, will this make it easier for people to do that or more restrictive, or how would that address issues such as that?
We just kicked off the project, so
Okay.
I think what we will develop will end up responding to what the public sentiment is.
Okay.
That's going to be our number one priority, because ultimately the project is going to, we intend for it to result in zoning amendments, and then it has to go to town meeting, and we want the voters to approve what we're proposing. So
Makes sense. Because I think you have it's a mix in those
Right.
areas of
Right.
residents that, never expected whatever would come into that area.
Sure, yeah.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be exploring
Balance
that
it,
further.
okay. Thank you, Chair.
All right, anything else on the articles? Okay. And then, Michael, we have your request to authorize a housing choice designation application. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, this is a program through the Executive Office on Housing and Livable Communities. I guess the easiest way to describe it is this is a rewards program for communities to opt into who have met certain housing development metrics and have certain housing policies in place. And there's a variety of there's 5 different tiers that communities can, you meet so much housing development, but you don't have X amount of housing policies in place, and, or vice versa. We kind of fall in the middle of that. Our growth rate was 3.9% from 2021 to 2025. And we actually meet a lot of the best practices in the program to participate in this. When you participate in this program, it opens up a number of different grant programs, and can give you bonus points on grant applications. And there's also no requirement that you're producing any more housing to continue participating in the program, at least for your duration of your participation. So it's a 5-year program. If in 5 years, we're not compliant and we'd stop participating in it. I don't think would be like you're removed in the program, you just haven't, produced enough housing or whatever. But for the 5-year period, I think it's something that we ought to take advantage of because, again, there are no requirements to participate in it. And so it'll give us access to things like the Housing Choice Grant Program, which is a very flexible grant program. Obviously, you can apply for housing-related things, but you can also get grant funding for transportation, like for sidewalks and roadways. You can get funding for stormwater improvements, for water infrastructure, so like the water line project, we can get funding for stuff like that. Comprehensive planning, there's a whole host of things. It's a very flexible program, and one of the good things about the grant program is you're not competing against every single community in the state. It's exclusive to communities who participate in this. You also get some boost in the rankings for Mass DOT's capital improvement program. So the main thing that's going to touch on that for us is through the Chapter 90 funding. And then there are a couple of other programs that I want to call out, like the Seaport Economic Council grant. Actually, Jeff Bull's here today, and we've been working on a project with doing some upgrades on the Hicksbridge Landing. And this program, if we participate in the housing choice designation, would eliminate all required match for that grant program, which is pretty big because you can ask for over $1 million if you participate in this program. So that's a huge amount of match that we potentially wouldn't have to put up for. Then I know Recreation is looking to do some reworking of the site that has the skate park on it. And so there's a grant program to help out with park projects that we could get bonus points for in that review process. Highway can get bonus points in the state's Complete Streets program. And then we can get bonus points in MassWorks too. Those are like the big ticket items. There's a list you can, on the memo you can look at. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good opportunity for the town. And like I said, there's no downside to participating. I think it would be to our we would be leaving something on the table that I think we should take advantage of otherwise.
Thank you. Any questions?
You know you have questions.
Go ahead.
Through the chair. So, Michael, first off, thank you for your ability to pull these grants. I think Westport is dependent or needs to be more dependent on grants and the ability to get those. I was just reading through this specifically, is like inclusionary zoning and some of this stuff with affordable housing improvement and that sort of stuff. Is that stuff that we already have in place, so that we're not changing anything with respect to zoning or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't have the zoning bylaw in front of me, but the inclusionary zoning was adopted, I don't know how many years ago, but that's been in place for a while. And duplexes, I think that's the other one you're talking to. Duplexes are allowed all across town already. So nothing in all I guess, to answer your question more directly, the list of best practices that I have highlighted in your packet, these are things that are already exist, not things that need to change in order to participate.
So there will be no changes with respect to that. It's just our ability to be a part of this program and hopefully open up access to
Yeah,
greater grants.
exactly.
All right, okay, thank you. I appreciate you looking into that.
Of course.
Anything else?
I'm done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now we need a motion.
Are we approving all of them at once?
No, we're just the housing choice designation
Okay.
application.
Motion to approve the housing choice designation?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 4 in favor and 1 absent. Thank you. Anything else, Michael? while you're here?
Do you need to make a motion to place the?
The zoning.
We're gonna do the zoning
Oh,
bylaws.
later on
and
in the-
we have a whole warrant.
That's why I was confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item F, discuss, review, approve, and close the town meeting warrant. So I think we've got all the detail that we need.
Okay, great.
If anybody's planning to oppose the inclusion of those on the warrant, please tell Michael now. Otherwise, we can.
Unlikely.
I will not oppose them, Michael.
Okay. You're safe. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
And since Jeff Bull is here, I'm assuming you're here to talk about Article 27 on the warrant?
Yeah, I'm not fully briefed on article numbers and all.
Okay, so Article 27 is overnight parking at the landing. All right, so let's take that out of order since you're here. So this will be under the general warrant question, the general warrant topic, but the Article 27 is to amend Article 10 of the general bylaws, overnight parking restrictions and penalties. And it looks like the change here is to increase the parking penalty from $20 to $50. Is that about right? No?
Yeah, so I think there was prior discussion about 50. I know, based on, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of the latest discussion is really as high as will be allowed, I think was the recommendation I think I got from the landing, not the landing commission, the beach.
Up to the expectation of either $200 or $250.
I like that.
So where is 50 just a placeholder here?
The 50 is a placeholder.
Okay, so what is the plan is to make it 200?
So I believe that's been the discussion. I think, my understanding, just again, in our conversations to date is, consistency across all the town properties, with the idea that, the groups really wanted to be at a dollar amount that, it deters people from doing those actions. So I think, again, our plan after this would be, run this language by council, make sure that we are encompassing all the areas that have been outlined by the Landing Commission and the Beach Committee. And I think $200 is where the discussion's been up to this point.
So we're going to close the warrant today. So I know that we'll go through legal and update the wordings, but I'm worried about the dollars if we change that after we close it. Like, what's your take on that? Should we make it 200 now or do?
So I would say we can certainly amend it to 200, again, as a placeholder. I did talk to council before the meeting because one of the items, again, that's not fully fleshed out is the acceptance of the street of Stacy Lane. The board can open and close the warrant again if there was a substantive change that we needed to do.
Well, and the floor of town meeting can change the dollar amount, right? So
Of
somebody
course.
can amend it at town meeting. I just want to make sure that whatever we're publishing as the draft warrant
Yes.
is closer to what we think it's going to end up with.
Yeah, so I would say after, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If I may, my understanding typically at town meeting is you can amend something, but you cannot amend to make it more restrictive. You
Usually-
can amend it to make it less restrictive. So you might want to go with 200 now.
That's what I'm thinking. I think if we think we're gonna end up at 200, it is much
We
easier
should
to go
stop at
down than it is to go
Yeah.
up, right? So that's why.
And then you can back down if there's some legal reason you can't charge that much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say, tonight, as we go through the warrant and all the articles, if there are edits that, we, decide to make or the board decides to make, we can approve the amended, well, it's not even approving, we're not really even approving the warrant tonight, so I can make those edits for the draft that we publish for the public, and then that will be the draft when we send to council, that's what they'll work off of.
Okay, I know
Yeah.
I would be more comfortable with putting the higher number if we think it's 200. But can you just,
Certainly.
I didn't give you really the chance to talk about, can you talk about why we need to raise the parking fee? Or it's not a parking fee, it's an overnight parking ticket, basically.
We're beginning to see campers in town. And there have been complaints issued to the police department and asked for enforcement, and the police department hasn't really had a way to enforce. So part of it is some clarity, and I think there's complications with some of this too, because, part of it is parking, some of it also is tenting, which has happened occasionally now at Head of Westport. So the other thing I think this board needs to face is, what is the penalty for overnight on-street parking? And this is typically something that's usually enforced when there's a complaint. It's not something like in the neighborhood if someone's having their relatives over and there's snow on the ground and there isn't a parking ban, that it's not going to be enforced perhaps, but it's more an issue of when there is a developing problem, because these folks are pretty intelligent. They will figure out pretty quickly that if it's a $200 fine, for example, across from the life-saving station, if they just move about 20 feet down and park not at the life-saving station, I mean, not at the, quote, beach or landing, whatever we're going to call it, well, then it's $20.
Yeah.
So I would hope that you would also address what is the fine for just on-street parking overnight in town. I believe there's a regulation that disallows that, even though it's rarely, I don't think the police are driving around looking for people that are parked overnight on residential streets. I mean, I think that goes on a lot. It's when there's a problem. And, certainly that goes into your, Airbnb and stuff if a bunch of people are sharing a property. And so there's larger ramifications. And my understanding, speaking with the chief of police, is that this may not be something that we can get going this year, because he says his ticket books are already printed, and he's a little bit not excited about reprinting the ticket books, but that's something you can take up with him. And given the amount of revenue here, certainly is something that we might, the beach committee has money, we have a little money. I don't know how much it costs for ticket books, but, so, yeah, there's larger issues here, obviously. But part of it is just to send a message to the camping community, and that it's not that easy just to plop down in Westport for a weekend.
So I'm reading the article, Chris. So the first part of it is to change, so the general bylaws, Article 10, Town Landings, has $20 in here, and then we're proposing changing it to 200.
Yes.
But then it's also inserting a section that allows the landing commission or the select board to establish restrictions. So it looks to me like that is giving us the ability to kind of do this outside of town meeting, to change some of the rules. Is that right?
Yeah, so, I know that the kind of conversation's been ongoing, and I know that, my meetings on this topic, there's kind of a few different problems that I think we're trying to address.
Yeah, there's particular, if I can help with that, there's
Yeah.
particular clarity needed, and probably in the warrant, because if not, someone's going to try to amend it, even I would, that this would not apply this year to Westport Point Landing, that fishermen, commercial fishermen go out for 2 or 3 nights. They're used to parking there. I know there's talk about developing some other way of authorizing parking at the point, but that's going to take months, if not years, to figure out. And I think that it would be a big mistake to start saying that fishermen can't park there overnight.
Yeah, no one's trying to stop the
No,
fishing.
but the specific language you're referring to, so, as I was going through and starting this, again, we'll be working with council on this, but I think my goal was to try to capture, what they were looking for out of the proposed article for the warrant. And I think in review of the warrant, there was a little bit of vagueness with regards to the roles and responsibilities, who was issuing this, who had the ability to enforce this. And so I think my intention was to try and offer a little bit of clarity into that process. Obviously, I'll say this is, as of now, our best shot at a rough draft to make those changes. I do intend to sit with council and have a long discussion about, I think, what's currently in place, what needs to be in a bylaw versus maybe followed up with a regulation or a policy.
So this might get adjusted. So
Yes.
we're closing the warrant, but we can still amend the article.
That is correct, yes.
And again, the on-street parking is something to think about. It's just because,
Yeah.
people could just park on Bridge Street if.
So I would just say for the purposes of this year and how it is on the warrant, obviously that would be crafted a different way because it wouldn't obviously be within this article, or within this section of the bylaws. So, and also I think my understanding about on-street is, and I'd have to do a bit of additional research, but I also think it's tied to the zone within town. I don't necessarily know if we're in a position to, create an overlay district for, there's just more conversation, I guess.
No, so Article
Yeah.
27 specifically talking about the landings.
That's correct.
Right, so
Yep.
I think that's, go ahead.
I have a lot of questions on this, so I don't want to take up everyone's time. But I agree completely with Jeff. I think it's come anecdotally back to me and from people asking about Drift Road, what you're talking about specifically. Parking, not the landing, it's off of Drift Road where we provide parking. So then it becomes a question as to whether that's on-street, off-street parking. So that I know what you're talking about specifically. But dealing with the landing, does this include Cherry and Webb beach parking? Would that be included in this mix?
So unfortunately, I don't have that answer in front of you.
Okay.
I'd have to just
Cherry and Webb is not the landing though, is it?
No, but the beach committee, I know, was asking for an increase because they're faced with people from New York, from Boston,
They don't
who
But
show up
I think
in a
we don't
camper
need
van.
I don't think we need a bylaw change to change the beach.
And I think
Yeah.
since we're opening up this can of worms, I think we want to probably be consistent across the board. I think there's an issue with the boat landing
Yeah.
with Cherry and Webb. We have residents that get down there and like you said, and we discussed even prior to the meeting, they don't care about a $25 ticket because it costs $40 to be out of state to go to the state beach, so it's a cost of doing business. So I think, if we're going to go down this road, it would be great to be consistent with the various landings and areas, because, if you hit somebody, technically the landing, Bridge Road is a no parking zone, the boat ramp is no parking and should be a tow zone. Unfortunately, no one ever gets towed because of liability and concerns with that. But, you tow one car, word would get around, it would go pretty quickly, but getting hit with a $200 ticket may
So
also,
I think, Chris, to that point, I think that some of those things that we were talking about, like the beach fines and that sort of thing, I don't think we need in the warrant, right, or in the
Yes.
bylaw. So if you can, in the next couple of meetings, like sometime between now and town meeting.
Yes.
Just kind of rationalize the other types of parking tickets that we have, so we just have a
Absolutely.
visibility into that.
Yeah, and I think just the fact we have met, I think that's the intent, is we're trying to get there. How, whether it's, again, in a bylaw, specifically stated, or if it's more outlined within a policy, we'll make sure that, we outline those and that
Yeah.
there's some consistency there, yeah.
And then definitely follow on the, if it's, if the part of the point, if we need to figure out a way to give permits for fishermen or something
Well,
like
but that's not going to happen this year. That's like so complicated.
Well, but that's you said there was a landing, right?
It is, but you could in the warrant, I suppose, just spell out Adamsville Landing, Emma Tripp, and head of Westport, and omit the Westport Point.
Oh, all right, so you.
I'll work on it, yeah.
Okay.
And
just-
Go ahead.
Just one more question. I think there's been some discussion in the past that Mass General Law, basically is the one that drives some of these fees, not necessarily on our local landing. So if we can get clarification as to what we can do
Yeah.
as a town with
Yep.
respect to on-street parking, with respect to boat ramp parking. I know there's a memo of understanding where we're going to share some revenue with the state. I'd be more than happy to, with parking violations, share $200 as opposed to $25 or $20. So it makes sense to at least get that consistent across the board.
Okay, so that's the article on the landing. Anything else while you're here that you want to talk about?
Just to know also, this would include the new West Hicksbridge Landing, and still, it's a little unclear, and I hope we will, over time, deal with the reality of who's responsible for the East Hicksbridge Landing, you folks, or the Landing Commission, because historically, we have not been responsible, and we're not excited about becoming responsible, but I want somebody to be responsible because the town's growing, and there's more use, and stuff has happened there in the past that has not been well followed through on, and so that's an ongoing
Okay.
item on your,
All right, thank you. Anything, all right, anything for Jeff? All right, so, thank you.
You're
So, since, I'm going to just ask the board's indulgence, and we're going to skip the budget for a second and just go to the warrant, because we've been talking about so much of the warrant anyway, let's just finish up on the warrant. So, we have item F is discuss, review, approve, and close the town meeting warrant. So I just want to quickly run through the articles, and then I know there's some, we've talked about most of them that are highlighted here, but Article 1 is prior year bills, Article 2 is transfers, Article 3 is the stabilization fund. So the next few articles, we have an appropriation to the stabilization fund, the capital stabilization fund, the special education stabilization account, and the stabilization for collective bargaining. And then, so we're creating the fund to do it for the collective bargaining, and then we're appropriating to the collective bargaining.
That's-
So let's just talk about those stabilization funds. So I think at our last meeting,
Yes.
Dick had pointed out that we didn't have an appropriation to just like the regular stabilization account, right?
Capital statement.
Capital
Oh,
stabilization.
the capital stabilization. okay.
Yes, so in this updated draft, I did include that in there along with the 5%. So that comes out to $182,068. So that's consistent with past practice, so that has been included in there. For the Special Education Stabilization Fund, what's currently being proposed is a 2.5%. I know, I just want to make a note of the practice that's been in place of trying to get 5% included in there. So that's certainly open for discussion this evening. But as proposed, it's 2.5%. And the new proposed stabilization fund for helping support collective bargaining and non-union agreements, what's currently being proposed is $108,000. So from the last time we talked, that has been cut in half.
So your current budget proposal that you had, I know I just skipped the budget, but the current budget proposal has the 91,000 for the special ed stabilization, right?
$91,034.
Right.
Yes.
All right, any questions on those stabilization funds? Okay, moving on, Article 8 is just for the borrowing. Article 9 is the capital improvement planning report, and the current version of the budget includes the dump truck and the plow. I think this is a really good time to be adding to our fleet in the highway department. So we talked about that last time.
At the right price, too.
Yeah. Then we have Article 10 is the regular salaries for elected officers, so that's just the regular, whatever, the 2.5% increase. Article 11 is the budget, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Article 12 is Marine Service Enterprise, 13 is the Waterline Enterprise, 14 is the beaches. 15 is the Special Revenue Fund for the cable television. 16, so these are all standard articles. Article 16 is the revolving accounts. 17 is the community preservation report. So this is the open space and various other projects. All right, so Article 18 is appropriation for a waterline enterprise rate study. So this is, I think we talked about this at a previous meeting.
We did.
And that's included in your current budget.
Yes.
Article 19 is for a replacement for the, equipment for the transfer station. Article 20 has to do with the acquisition of foreclosed tax title properties.
Yes, so within your packet, unfortunately, Sue was unable to attend tonight. However, she did include a brief summary within the packet, I guess, just to go over it. And I also just can also just summarize it as well for continued discussion. So, so recently, Mass tax title law changed, and it requires towns to act after foreclosing on a property. So if we foreclose and we determine that we want to keep it for municipal use, we have to pay the former owners the excess equity, and we have to make that determination within 60 days. So that is, again, within 60 days, we have to decide whether to sell or retain the property, and then we have to notify the former owner. And if we retain it, we have to obtain an appraisal and have the funds available to pay the excess equity amount. So, obviously, unless we had the funding in place, that would be a very difficult, turnaround timeframe, to come up with the money. So this proposed article would create a funding mechanism similar to the past agricultural open space articles, which would allow the town to borrow the amount needed and when necessary to pay the excess equity if, we decided that the property was beneficial for town use. Because the borrowing would affect the tax levy, we would require, we look for a debt exclusion. If the article is not approved, the town would not have a funding source in place to purchase foreclosed properties that the town felt were beneficial. So I apologize, that was long-winded, but I guess that's the purpose.
And we're
of the
not
article.
trying to purchase any of these, or there's none that are really coming up, but this is a mechanism now to comply, to comply with the law if we do end up foreclosing on somebody.
That's correct. I at least, in the immediate future, there is not. However, we have properties that do have back taxes. I think what this would really give the board the opportunity to do is make the decision at the time a property was going to be foreclosed on. It gave you that option to purchase or not. Again, depending on where it is in town, the size of the property, how much, the town would need to or want to borrow and have a set-aside fund for, I think is certainly open to discussion. However, I think this is more of something to bring to your attention of whether or not the town wants to, start the process of exploring something like this, either this year or for future years.
So is there a sum of money that's being proposed, or is there, because you have it highlighted in here.
Yeah, so, I think there wasn't a set dollar amount. I mean, I think it was a placeholder dollar amount. I don't think there's a real sum of money specifically. I think really any sum of money would be beneficial, as a starting point for the town. I think it could be, $1 million, as a debt exclusion article. Obviously, as you go, further south into the community, the property values, do tend to get a little bit higher depending on how much land we're talking about.
But this article in itself is not a debt exclusion article. This is just, this is authorizing the borrowing, but not a debt exclusion.
Yeah, so this would require subsequent action.
Right, if you're,
And
yeah.
I was just gonna say, the motion itself would include a dollar amount, so it wouldn't be
Right.
necessary. I highlight the sum of money because I guess just from a discussion standpoint, I want to bring that up. But, at town meeting, if this was something that would be on the warrant, at the time of town meeting, there would be a dollar amount that we would include in that motion.
Okay.
How often has that even been an opportunity for the town to, do we know? I mean, Sue's not here, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Have we used that in the past for any properties that we're aware of?
Not to my knowledge
Okay.
in recent history, and again, the law's changed on this, so
Yep.
now we have to pay that excess equity, and we have to pay within, or be prepared within 60 days to make a decision.
But what do most cities and towns do? They would just auction off the property and pay the proceeds. How does that work if there's a?
Yeah, so, essentially, if the property got foreclosed, the town would receive the amount that was owed to it in back taxes,
And that's it, then basically?
and that's it.
Okay. I mean, I think this is the only benefit this would be is we're not gonna get obviously into the landlord situation. It's if there's a larger piece of property, probably open space or.
Yeah,
Well, something that affordable housing.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, at some point, the property that we developed Nokichoke Village on had been foreclosed, and
Yeah, so this could be open space, it could be recreation, it could be access to the water,
sometimes it was a combination, because
or a combination.
we did affordable housing, but a good chunk of that land was used for the land trust.
I mean, it's coming from the treasurer, so obviously,
Yeah, I mean,
more about it than I do, so that she's probably, obviously, I'm supportive of that from that standpoint.
Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
Also involved here is, there's two things. The change in the law, which was mentioned by Chris, that made it more complicated for the towns to get into tax title. But on top of that, the town auditor has mentioned this as part of the management letter from time to time. Not in terms of criticism, but to say that we need to look at this and see if we are, in so many words, leaving money on the table, and do we have procedures in place. So Sue is gathering that all together, and I think this is part of that.
Okay.
And I think at one time, when he was a select board member, Steve Willett brought this up, and we had Sue come in and talk about it. She comes in all the time to talk about it with the audit committee. So we're conversant with this, but at one point, Steve had been asking about it, and I believe she appeared and went through this to talk about the emerging new procedures to get at the tax title. It's very complicated to even talk about, but
Yeah.
we're kind of dissecting it little by little here, and this is part of that program.
I just want to make sure that whatever public education we have to do, because I don't want people to think, oh, we're going to, like, if you put $1 million in here, the town's going to try to spend $1 million, which is not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to comply with the law, and then we're trying to keep our options open in the event this sort of circumstance happens.
Yeah, and I think, at least with this, the other important thing to note is, it would be when a property was available.
Yeah.
So in terms of, that could be a year, it could be 3 years, it could be longer than that. But I think the idea is when there's a property that the town finds it's in the best interest to acquire it, the money's there in the bank.
All right, so you'll work with Sue to get the number that's going to, because there is a number
Yes.
that needs to go in here.
Yeah, so I'll talk to her, and I think it also would be good, just from a, how many properties have been foreclosed on, or in recent years, or if there has been a recent history where, foreclosure has occurred and the town's purchased it. I'll see if she's available for the next meeting to maybe provide a little more history in that area.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else on that?
Nothing on that.
So Article 21 is appropriation for public safety training. We talked about that at a previous, it's in the current proposed budget. Article 22 is an appropriation for grant matching funds. We also talked about it as part of the budget. Article 23 is an appropriation for school technologies. We talked about this last time about instead of just appropriating the 81,000 to the school department in their budget, to instead appropriate it for the purchase of technology. So they don't have to put it in their budget. They'll fund it out of this line item. Article 24 is the personal property tax bill exemption. I think this is if you have a low-value property to,
That's correct.
all right. Article 25 is amend the personnel bylaws. I think we did talk about this at a previous meeting, did we?
We did.
We did, all right. So any questions on that one? We probably need to talk about that again before town meeting, just to make it more clear what we're trying to do. Article 26 is the designation of the tree warden. So this would just designate the highway surveyor who's been effectively the tree warden all this time, and just not officially. Articles 27, 28, 29, 30, we already talked about. We talked about through 33. So Article 34 was a placeholder for the old high school reuse proposal. So the long-term building committee did not make a recommendation for a potential warrant article. And I think we don't have a potential warrant article in mind here. So I think my opinion is we should strike this article because I don't think we have enough there. But what do people think?
I agree. I mean, I think we approved the funding for more analysis on the old high school for the Council of Aging to use a certain amount of space. I think that was the $3,000 we approved.
Yeah, that would.
So that would be,
Yeah.
that's still in the process, so I don't think
Yeah, I don't think we have anything
to go forward with.
to go forward with.
Yeah, I agree, Madam Chair, and I think there's a lot more to come on the old high school,
Yes.
and it's ours now. Yeah, it will be shortly, so, but there's nothing that I could see that would be necessary for the upcoming town meeting. The timelines are not satisfactory. There's going to have to be sort of a relook at where do we go back, where do we start again, where do we restart again, I guess, and then strategize going forward. But nothing for this upcoming town meeting.
Yeah. So I don't think I don't know how widely published the warrant is. There's only one more article after this, so I think we just want to just strike the 34. And I don't think we need to leave it blank. I think we just strike it.
Yeah, so what I'll do after this evening, obviously, close the warrant as amended. I will remove it and obviously renumber that last article to move it up one. And then we'll go from there.
All right, so then the new Article 34 is the acceptance of Stacy Lanes. This is just a typical roadway acceptance.
Yes, and I'll just make one note on that, is that was supposed to be on for Monday, so we did have to push that back, just because of the timing, it'll be on the second meeting in March.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the budget in a minute, but I'll entertain a motion to close the annual town meeting warrant.
Motion to close town meeting warrants?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Or, sorry, 4 in favor, 1 absent. Anything else you need action on the warrant?
No, not at this time. I know at the next meeting, we will take vote to forward it over to the Finance Committee, and then at the meeting at the end of March, we'll approve it, so.
All right, and I did have someone ask me for when it was going to be posted on the town website, so can we just as soon as like in the next couple of days?
So the
get
first draft of it is actually posted
It
on the
is, okay.
website, and then this draft will be up there.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, so let's go back to the budget.
All right. Yes, so in your packet, you do have some updated, revenues, expenditures, and you have a line-by-line breakdown. So just as an update from our last meeting, as we discussed, the town revised its revenue projections. That made, if you just want to go to the next slide, perfect, 308,000 available to reduce the variance between the town and the school budget, as we previously discussed. That also made some additional funding available on the town side. So if you can just, look at the table here, the new net revenue is $2,112,466. 54% of that is allocated to the schools at just over 1.1 million, and $971,734 for the town. So on the expenditure side, the change from the last budget that was before you to now, just a couple of changes. So the first is just based on our discussion at the last meeting. This budget is proposing a mid-year hiring of one additional full-time police officer. So just based off of the recruitment schedule, the chief does not need the funding for the full year because the officer really wouldn't be in place until late fall, early winter. So the full annual salary, would be taken into consideration in FY '28. So, the change in that budget's about 53,000. And then within this budget, the proposed budget, there is a new personnel cost provision line item. And this includes the relocation of a salary account that was previously under the building department. Now it's a separate line item. So I think, as we look at, non-union increases, as we look at, across town, turnover, expected retirements, the idea would be that we have funding available to take those into consideration and really complement the stabilization article that's in place. The other thing to note is that within this budget, we're also trying to take into consideration expected salary increases like the police department for the future fiscal year. So we have a placeholder in the budget. So those are the two changes on the town side. I guess before I go any further, any questions on that piece of it?
No.
Okay. On to the school side. So the school's budget that was approved
Is
was,
that your screen? I think he's got it.
yeah, the next
One more.
slide. Sorry about that. So the school committee's approved budget for FY 2027 was $24,960,000. Wait, $24,960,332. The base budget from this past year that we're working off of was $23,254,943. And as I previously mentioned, we also looked at the 54% new revenue of just over 1.1 million. So as of now, when you look at those numbers, we had a budget variance of $564,658. So, that is from what we can sustain within what we're getting for new revenues and, without free cash. So that's what, we're working off of. So in order to reduce that, what we had proposed was taking 81,000 from the proposed school budget and setting that aside. So reduce that total budget that the school had approved by 81,000, and we'd be moving that to a separate warrant article for that amount. The other thing that we would be recommending is deferring the proposed service delivery increases of 135,000. So, within the budget that was approved by the school committee, there was 3 positions that were proposed. One of those positions was partially funded with opioid funding, which I know as of this time, I don't believe that there has been a final determination made on that in time for town meeting. So with that, if we were to defer that, proposed service delivery increase, the variance that we would have to address is $348,658. So what is proposed within this budget is to utilize free cash. So I know in prior fiscal years, the town has used free cash to help supplement the school budget. Last year was $480,000 that was allocated. I think just based off our prior discussions, the goal is to reduce that over time so that the budget is not in a structural deficit. So this would be a good start to that. So, with those numbers above, as proposed, that would be a level service budget for the schools. It would retain $80,000 that was made available through reorganization by the superintendent and the team over at the schools, that would allow them to fund an additional position as they deem necessary. And, like I said earlier, it actually, in addition to the level service, it also make available $81,000 to support school technology purchases. So that is what is before you this evening, for the budget. And, with that,
So just to kind of word it differently, so
yeah, and I apologize. Tried to.
it's hard
break it
to,
down
I
to
like, I
table, yeah.
appreciate that you, and
Yeah.
it doesn't line up. So just wording it a little bit differently. We had the
course.
school committee proposed a budget. Our proposed budget that we're going to talk about tonight is $135,000 short of what the school department asked for.
Yes.
So we are supplementing, we're taking whatever we had used. We are recommending $348,658 from free cash.
Yes.
For the budget and $81,000 for technology. So we're $135,000 different than what we're recommending, unless you want to change it, the current recommendation versus what the school department wants. So I like it, it's like we're saying they can do it by deferring service delivery increases, so that's the logic that we used, but it's really, we're just appropriating less than what they have asked for. So, and yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
but refresh our memory, you said 3.5% that this school budget is higher than it was in the prior year? Is that the number you used last time?
Yeah, so I don't have the updated, but it was approximately 3.5%. Might be a little bit less because, when we did the revenue split, there was actually a little bit more than I originally anticipated by a few $1,000s. So it is hovering right around 3.5% for an increase.
But if we made up the gap, that would raise, say, 3.5 or whatever it was to something higher, 3.7 or something, whatever.
It would be higher, yeah.
I think that kind of puts it into perspective.
Well, it doesn't look like you have a slide, but the proposed use of free cash, there was a table in the packet. So in order to, if we were trying to make up that 135,000, we'd have to take it from something else. There's not enough remaining free cash, so you'd have to reduce something else in one of the stabilization.
That is correct. As of now, based on the proposed articles, the remaining free cash allowance, when we take into consideration the other financial policies of the town, would be about 19,000.
All right, any question, any comments on
I mean, if the schools don't agree to that, the school committee doesn't agree to that, aren't they just going to go to town meeting and try to
that? So
do it that way?
historically so first, we are supplementing the budget that we would calculate by 350 plus $81,000, right? So we've already said that we're agreeing with that. But remember that our job is to propose a balanced budget to the finance committee. The finance committee is the one that makes the recommendation to town meeting. So my experience has been in recent years that the school committee, we've shown a little give, that we was like, hey, we're not saying no free cash at all. We're just trying to reduce the amount of free cash. It's consistent with what we told them last year, that we were willing to supplement with free cash, but we wanted to start reducing the need. So anyone can go to town meeting and ask for anything, but I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, my only concern is that they took a pretty big haircut from 480 to 380, basically, $100,000 in the free cash decrease. I mean, I know we want to decrease the dependency on that free cash, but 100K seems.
I think they
right
didn't,
up.
because there was 450 last year, and it's 360 plus 81 this year. I think they're actually getting more free cash.
Yeah, I mean, I will just note that, the budget, again, I think the schools did a very good job. And I credit them for really looking at their numbers and, figuring out, where they could, make their operations more efficient and really identifying those specific needs. I think, first and foremost, when you're considering the use of one-time funds, my recommendation is it's really a last resort, and really it's so that you can maintain level service, right? I think what you don't want to see and what a lot of towns utilize one-time funding for is if there was, severe cuts, right? We have to cut, multiple teachers, or we have to cut, make cuts in multiple departments. I think, as a recommendation, I would just say, if we, as the town, if the board felt using one-time funds, was appropriate here, I would say utilizing it for level service, so that we can, again, begin a plan to phase out that over time. I think that that's understandable, but using it to bring on new service delivery, I think that's really where, again, it increases that structural deficit, or extends that structural deficit for a longer period of time. We have been fortunate with the amount of one-time funds that we've had, and we've had a couple of good fiscal years, and a lot of the work and credit to Jim, again, for putting us in a position where, we have been able to get new revenue in. But I think, again, my recommendation, just, based on the budget I submitted, was, we're increasing that, our revenue estimates to be a little more conservative, with the idea that, we're really trying to reduce that free cash allowance over the next couple of years.
I think the other thing to note is we're relatively new to the Special Education Stabilization Fund too, because that's one that really can hit the school department very hard if they get a significant need. So I think that's another thing that we've been doing as part of just the regular financial planning, to make sure that the school department doesn't get hit as badly as they have in the past. So I think we're doing a pretty fair job of trying to meet their needs while balancing with the rest of the town. All right, anything else on the budget? Any other changes or questions before we finalize this and send it to the Finance Committee?
I had one question, I just couldn't find it. The OPEB, did that go down this year, that recommendation?
Yes, it did. So we're recommending 100,000 for this year.
Yeah. Did you have any chance conversation with the Finance Committee on that?
I did. They felt 100,000 was appropriate.
Yeah, I'd rather see it stay the same. However, as long as we're contributing to it, I think we're within the spirit of doing that. Yeah, it's important for the town, something a lot of people are not really aware of, but the more we fund OPEB, the less it is in the long run for all. So we don't want to lose that. But I think 100,000 is, there's going to be years when you don't have the same what you had the year before, so I think that works. I thought it was 100, I just wanted to confirm that.
Of course.
All right, so I do want to thank the Finance Committee for their patience. We were supposed to give them the finalized budget on the 20th of February. They allowed us to extend it till the 23rd, and thank them for their patience. That I believe you did send it to them earlier this week, your version. So thank you to the Finance Committee for allowing us to delay. All right, so I don't think we need, do we need a motion on that?
Yes, so I would ask for, let me just,
To approve the FY27 budget as discussed?
yes, and, forward to the Finance Committee.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 4 in favor and 1 absent. Thank you. So now we have G, discussion to vote and rescind the local state of emergency declared on Sunday, February 22nd in response to the blizzard. So I failed to mention this at the beginning of the meeting, but we did have a special meeting, you all were there, to declare a state of emergency. I'm really glad we did that. The big advantage of declaring a state of emergency, it opens up funding sources to us so that we can recoup some of the money that we're going to lose here. But also it just comply with the governor's orders and that kind of thing. But the agenda was to vote to rescind, but I know, Chris, from talking to you earlier, that you think we might need a little bit more time.
Yes, so, obviously, we set this agenda a few days ago, wanted to see where we were in terms of progress in the community. As of this evening, as I mentioned earlier, we're about 96% of the way there in terms of having roads be passable. Crews were out this afternoon and into this evening to continue that. What I would ask the board of this evening is if we can maintain the local state of emergency for now, but authorize me to rescind the declaration on behalf of the board, when we find it appropriate. I expect that to be over the next several days, hopefully in the next 24 hours. But obviously I want to make sure that as long as there's a need here, as long as we're pulling resources from other communities, and we're really just tracking the event as a whole, that order stays in place for now.
So my recommendation would be to vote to authorize the town administrator in consultation with Chief Baldwin, the emergency management director, to authorize them to rescind the order.
To determine when to rescind
Right.
the state of emergency
Yeah.
declaration.
And I would just say that will also help so that we don't have to call an emergency or a special meeting of the board, if that is over the next few days.
Okay.
Are you moving it?
What?
Are you moving that?
Yeah, I did.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I second that.
Oh, no, Rich,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. And just to that point you just mentioned, we are tracking the storm-related expenses separately for potential reimbursement, right? So Chris was telling me earlier that some of the departments have asked about overtime money. This is a separate budget item that we'll have to address at some point.
Yeah, so we are tracking it because there is a potential for federal reimbursement. It was a high bar to hit in terms of the disaster, but based on the snow accumulation, we appear to have hit that and more. So we are going to be working with our state partners on that process over the next coming weeks and months. So we're going to track it separately. Obviously, the more we can get reimbursed, it will really help us on the town side, but we'll also look at options if we did have to incur some of those costs.
I believe that
into the budget.
I was on a MEMA conference call last week, and I believe that the previous record for Bristol County was either 25 or 28.
I think it was 28, yeah, 28.
And we just blew right through that.
Yeah.
All right, so but a lot of accounting having to go on there, so I appreciate, thank you to the accounting department, the underrated heroes of the. All right, we had an item on here for Bill Chase. Did he want to defer that, or did he want us?
I would recommend we defer that this
All
evening.
right, so
So moved.
we'll skip over that one. The town administrator report.
Yes, so obviously at the beginning of the meeting, I talked a lot about the storm, so, we're on it. Tonight we'll send out another update, just like we've been doing for over the last number of days. Again, just hats off to the whole team. So the final budget that was voted on tonight, I will work to put together a memo on behalf of the board, and we will get that over before the end of the week to Karen and the Finance Committee so that they can continue their discussions on the FY27 budget. We'll also get the draft warrant that we discussed this evening on to the town website tomorrow, and we will forward this over to council so that we can also get their feedback on the language that we currently have. So one thing I want to bring to your attention, in addition to what we've talked about, the town treasurer is tracking some state legislation that would prevent the town from blocking license or registration renewals for residents who haven't paid their motor vehicle excise tax. So, currently the town has more than 500,000 in unpaid bills tied to these. So, under what's proposed, when they're going to renew, right now there's a hold on it that says you can't renew until you pay the town the fee. What this would do is it would lift that hold, both going forward as well as for all the holds that we currently have in place. There is concern that it would make enforcement and trying to collect some of the dues owed to the town even more difficult. Based off of the early analysis, it could, reduce compliance down to about between 50 and 75%. So it is something that she wanted me to bring to your attention. It's something that I'm tracking. I think it is currently in the House 2 bill up at the state, but this is something that also has been commented on through MMA and our partners as well, just more or less an objection of that, but we're keeping track of that.
I just have a question. What's the genesis on that? I mean, obviously, that it seems to be punishing cities and towns and municipalities in their ability to collect that if you can't, if they can
Yeah,
just register the vehicle and not pay the taxes.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure
you're trying to
yeah.
improve, because if you don't allow them to register the vehicle, they're gonna be driving unregistered vehicles. I think that's probably why. I'm not saying I agree
Yeah,
with it, I'm just
but-
saying that's,
but
the
the-
benefit to the benefit is you'd have a registered vehicle on the streets that's getting inspected and that sort of thing.
Well,
But-
if they're not paying their taxes, the only people that are getting their money in that situation is the state.
Yes.
Because the state's getting their registration, the town's not getting their excise tax.
Yeah, I think there's no, how in the world, I mean, how in the world can you even collect on you can't foreclose on an excise tax bill, right?
So the one thing we had in our power,
Yeah.
want to take away.
Yeah. Yes. That's a fun one.
Yeah, so there's multiple groups that are more or less tracking this and talking to the state and advocating on behalf of the towns, but something I just, when we talk about revenues, I want to bring that to the board's attention. Lastly, just in terms of, meetings I've been in the finance committee meetings, I attended infrastructure oversight committee meeting, and I continue to have regular meetings with, members of our different boards and committees and departments as well.
The
so.
long-term building committee had a meeting.
Long-term building did. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but I did watch it, and I did also attend the public presentation as well, so to listen to some of the latest options that were proposed.
And I know you've been very busy this week. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, minutes,
Motion to approve the minutes from
February 9th.
February 9th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. A report on the bill warrant.
The bill warrant was signed on February the 18th, and it was $202.1 million. Everything was in order. It was fairly cut and dried and fairly usual for this time of year. This is not an actionable item, it's simply information, so all is in order.
Excellent, thank you. We have liaison committee reports and suggestions for future agenda items. Jake, you want to start?
I just had 2 meetings, I think. Chris was at both of them. I think you were at one of them. Obviously, the long-term building committee I attended. And then also the infrastructure oversight committee. I know you touched on that a little bit. Essentially looking at the ongoing water line project, possible, connection with Dartmouth and various other things. But I think there's a little bit of unsureness with respect to funding and grants. I know there's stuff out there, just as to when we're going to get that. And then also, we did have a discussion on engineering firms to bring them on as well, and again, where to pay that. So nothing was really finalized in that IOC meeting, but continuing on with the projects as is. The only thing on the future agenda items, I think what we talked about on is it March 9th next meeting? When is the next meeting?
The 9th, yes.
Was Westport YAA doing a presentation on obviously their facility with the pickleball courts and the money they're raising for that. So that'd be the only thing if we could add that to the next agenda. Thank you.
So I was looking on Friday, Chris and I don't remember, were you there, Craig? We had a meeting on the, we got a briefing on the Barrier Beach plan. I was a little disappointed in the recommendations from the Barrier, to be frank, but they are making some recommendations to change the way we clear East Beach Road when we have overwash. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that.
Were there any specific issues that you had with, I mean?
Well, I mean, I didn't like, it's like the gist of their recommendation is, so the change that we made recently was to move, to the extent that we can, to move cobble and sand that has washed onto the south side, I guess that's south, but onto the beach side, right? Because the idea being that the water has deposited from that side, so push it back on that side.
Correct.
The recommendation from the barrier beach perspective is not to do that.
Correct.
Instead, basically split it down the middle. Because the ocean is trying, or Mother Nature is trying to put the sand on the north
I agree.
side, and so it's healthier for the barrier if you let Mother Nature do its thing. So that's not super popular with people who have property down there, because then they would have to replenish with brought-in material. I was hoping for, I think I was just hoping for a better answer. So but we're not changing the policy right now.
Okay, I just wanted to, because
Yeah.
I know I've had some people reach out to me concerning that, because I think the policy is to at least give it back to where.
The policy is kind of,
Yeah.
it's like I was, and they also kind of reinforced, there's a lot of public perception that the Gooseberry Causeway, if you open that up, that would help. The people doing the studies, the geologists are saying, no, it wouldn't. So it's like a couple things are counterintuitive, right? Like, it's kind of counterintuitive to move the sand onto the north star instead of back where it came from. But I'm not a hydrogeologist, but it makes kind of sense when they explain about the more you make that steep incline, the worse it starts getting.
Correct.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah,
So I heard from Mr. Kurt of the East Beach
Probably.
property owners.
Yeah.
And his point to me was, we have a contract, which we do,
Mm-hmm.
and would there be flexibility to review the coastal management work? And he didn't say make exceptions, but not just to go and do it, but to sit down and discuss it, and also make coastal management aware, I think it's coastal zone,
CZM.
Coastal zone.
aware that we have a contract in place, and we should honor that, we must honor that. But these things can change, but they should change for good reason, and shouldn't be changed willy-nilly. That seemed to be what they're concerned with.
well, I mean, during the briefing that we got, they did talk about you're trying to balance competing needs, right? You have the property owners, you have the public infrastructure there, you have the emergency egress, like, there's a bunch of competing needs down there, so there's no, I was hoping they had like some magic wand and you could wave it and it'd be good.
Anyway,
And I think the other issue with that is, obviously, from a state standpoint, there's retreat, right? There's.
Right, and
they're
right,
pushing
yeah.
retreat from a state standpoint, so they don't necessarily agree with, maybe how we're doing things with respect to
But
the.
the briefing didn't include any kind of, you have to do this or anything like that. We're still in the control of our own policies, so. I also I was just trying to check my calendar to see to remind myself of what I did last week. So, there was also a meeting of the bike committee on, the 19th. Not a lot going on because it's not really the right season for that, but, Gail Rodricks is just a force of nature and we're very lucky to have her. She's getting all kinds of stuff going with the bikes. All right, those were the meetings I went to. All right, those were my meetings. What do you got, Dick?
I didn't have any meetings to report on, but in terms of future agenda items, it's obvious that we need to be talking about the old high school now. Maybe not at the next meeting, but at some point, say, what do we do to get this looked at again and decide what we do next? Now it's our baby, as they say. But that can be at a later date. I don't have anything else.
All right, thank you. Craig?
I did attend the last opioid settlement committee meeting on the 17th, I believe. And the Affordable Housing Trust, their last meeting, but the one that was scheduled for this week has been postponed, and we decided rather than going in and try to do an infill meeting, we're just going to meet next on the 18th of March, which is what our March scheduled meeting was anyhow. So that there was going to be an attempt to make a change, but it was only a matter of a little over a week, so we made that.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments and statements from the public? Happy birthday, Valerie. So seeing none, we don't have any unanticipated topics. All right, so everybody stay off the road if you can. They're still clearing. Please have patience with our public safety and highway department crews. They're working really hard to get the streets cleared off. Maybe Mother Nature will give us a break and not snow this weekend. That would be lovely.
Nope.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Good night.
4 in favor, 1 absent.